Welcome to a deep dive. Today we're tackling a topic that's really fundamental for parents for raising kids: discipline.
Hmm.
And I mean, not punishment exactly, but discipline in the sense of guiding, teaching, helping children learn how to navigate the world and, well, themselves. It's complex stuff.
It really is emotional too.
Yeah.
And honestly, something most parents, grapple with pretty much every single day.
Absolutely. And there's just so much information out there, isn't there? It's hard to know what approaches are actually effective, especially like in the long run.
Yeah, cutting through the noise is tough.
Right. So for this deep dive, you've given us a, well, really valuable set of sources to work with. We're looking at a major policy statement from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP.
The main group for pediatricians in the U.S., yeah.
Exactly. And we've also got a review from the Wales Center for Public Policy that really digs into the research evidence.
And some super helpful developmental insights from 0 to 3. They focus specifically on babies and toddlers.
Great. So our mission here is basically to uh, distill the evidence from these sources on different discipline strategies.
Right, and understand child behavior, from a developmental perspective, and then explore the positive, evidence-based approaches they talk about.
The goal is to give you a clearer picture, sort of a shortcut to being well informed on this whole really critical journey.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Okay, yeah, let's dive in. Where should we start? Maybe with the methods that often get debated, the ones the sources call aversive discipline.
Sounds good. The AAP statement is a good place to begin, since pediatricians are often that first point of contact for parents asking for advice.
Right. And they get right into it. They talk about what most people know as corporal punishment.
Yeah, they define it pretty specifically. The AAP says it's non-injurious, open-handed hitting with the intention of modifying child behavior.
Non-injurious. Okay.
And they clarify, spanking is considered a form of this. And they note that most people tend to use corporal punishment, physical punishment, and spanking almost interchangeably.
Gotcha. And it's not just physical stuff, is it? The sources also talk about harsh words.
Exactly. The AAP mentions verbal abuse. That's non-physical punishment meant to cause shame or humiliation. They cite an international group on that.
Shame or humiliation. Wow.
And UNICEF, which the Wales Center review mentions, actually calls yelling and other harsh verbal discipline psychologically aggressive.
Psychologically aggressive. That's strong language.
It is. And what's really striking is how clear the AAP is on this, their core message. Aversive strategies, and that includes both the physical hitting and the yelling or shaming, they say these are, at best, minimally effective short-term.
Minimally effective.
And just not effective for actually teaching kids over the long term.
Okay, so ineffective. And do they link these methods to actual problems?
They do, directly. The AAP statement connects corporal punishment to a higher risk of negative outcomes across the board: behavioral, cognitive, psychosocial, emotional problems.
Wow, okay.
And here's a really key point they make. Corporal punishment tends to increase aggression and anger in kids.
Increase it. That seems completely backwards if the goal is teaching self-control or responsibility.
Right, it kind of undermines the whole point. And they're just as clear about the harsh verbal stuff. The AAP points to research linking harsh verbal abuse to, well, damaging effects on a child's self-esteem. They even bring up a specific long-term study. It found that harsh verbal abuse before age 13 was associated with more conduct problems and more depressive symptoms when those kids hit early adolescence.
Even if the parents were generally warm otherwise.
Yeah, that's what the study suggested. That parental warmth didn't seem to cancel out the negative impact of the harsh words, which suggests that verbal harshness itself can really pack a punch, regardless of affection.
That's sobering. And the Wales Center review, does it echo this?
It does. It notes that the way physical punishment is typically used by parents correlates with negative outcomes like antisocial behavior. And of course, they stress that severe physical punishment and outright child abuse are definitely harmful. No question there.
It feels like maybe the tide is turning on this a bit socially.
It seems so. The AAP mentions declining support for corporal punishment in the U.S. They cite a 2016 survey where only 6% of pediatricians endorsed it. That's down quite a bit.
Only 6%. Wow.
And parents' surveys show a similar trend, especially among younger parents. It suggests maybe a generational shift in thinking.
Okay, but let's get into the nuance here, because research is rarely simple. The Wales Center review talks about this debate: causality versus correlation. Does physical punishment cause these bad outcomes, or is it just associated with them, maybe because other factors are involved?
Exactly. That's a critical distinction in research. Experts in the field don't always agree on the the strength of the link, or whether physical punishment is a direct cause.
Right.
The Wales review acknowledges the evidence shows an association, a correlation, but it also says the evidence doesn't definitively prove that what some might call reasonable physical punishment by a parent directly causes these negative outcomes.
So there's a link, but proving A causes B is harder. Why is that?
Well, they point to challenges in the research itself, like using meta-analyses, where you combine data from lots of different studies. There can be methodological issues that make it, well, inappropriate to claim direct cause and effect.
The old correlation is not causation line.
Pretty much. It's more likely a complex mix of factors, things within the family, the overall parenting style, the child's own temperament, maybe stress levels, lots of things likely coexist.
Okay, so other things are happening too.
Right. And when researchers try to statistically control for these other factors, these confounding variables, the specific effect size linked just to the physical punishment tends to get smaller.
That makes sense statistically. But what's the bottom line from that Wales Center source then?
Okay, this is really crucial. Despite that whole debate about the exact causal chain, they state very clearly there's absolutely no evidence from good, replicated, peer-reviewed research showing that parental physical punishment has any positive effects on long-term development.
No positive effects found.
None. And equally important, it hasn't been shown to be more effective than non-physical discipline, even for just changing behavior in the short term.
So it doesn't work better than other methods anyway.
Apparently not. The Wales source even cites a study comparing time out with what they called conditional smacking for defiant toddlers, aged 2 to 6. The smacking offered no extra benefit in getting the kids to change their behavior.
Huh. So, okay, for researchers, the causality versus correlation thing is complex. But for parents, the practical message from these sources seems pretty clear.
Yeah, I think so. Aversive methods don't seem effective long-term, they don't offer benefits over positive methods, and they're linked to negative risks, even if other factors play a role too.
And they also briefly touch on the link between physical punishment and child abuse, right? Acknowledging it's a tricky line sometimes.
Yes, they mention evidence suggesting that link, while recognizing the distinction can seem arbitrary sometimes. Overall, the medical and policy groups we're looking at land firmly on recommending against these aversive methods.
Okay, so if those methods are out, what's in? The AAP statement mentions something key. Effective discipline starts with understanding normal child development.
Absolutely. How you guide a 3-year-old is, well, worlds apart from guiding a teenager.
Right. And this is where that 0 to 3 source comes in handy, isn't it? Helping us understand the why behind some behaviors, especially with toddlers, that tricky 13 to 24-month phase.
Oh yeah, incredibly valuable. They paint this picture of toddlers as, like, little scientists, constantly exploring, testing things out.
Filling and dumping, opening and closing.
Exactly. Pulling, pushing. And now that they can walk and move better, they can conduct bigger experiments like stacking blocks just to see them crash down.
Or the classic toilet paper unrolling experiment.
Definitely a favorite.
Yeah.
It's all about cause and effect for them.
And at the same time, they're developing this fierce drive for independence, right? The me do it stage.
Oh, absolutely. Wanting to do things themselves, say
Yeah.
no a lot, having their own ideas, asserting their will.
And language is just exploding.
Right. Soaking up words, starting to put 2 words together, go side, maybe using words to get what they want.
And 0 to 3 mentions those cute pronunciation mistakes, like duh for dog.
Yeah, and they say instead of constantly correcting, just model the right way by repeating the word clearly, like, yes, that's the dog. That helps them learn naturally.
Makes sense. And what about socially and emotionally? Things get complicated there, too.
Very. They start realizing they're separate people, that self-awareness developing.
Yeah.
And that opens the door to more complex feelings.
Yeah.
Empathy, maybe trying to comfort someone, but also pride, shame, embarrassment.
And the big one, mine.
Oh, yes. Understanding possession leads to huge struggles with sharing and taking turns. It's a massive learning curve.
And all those big feelings can just bubble over, leading to tantrums.
Totally. 0 to 3 really emphasizes that toddlers need our help learning self-control, learning how to cope when they get frustrated. Learning to cooperate isn't just about obeying, it's the beginning of learning to balance their needs with others.
They also mention routines and transitions being important.
Hugely important. Temperaments differ, of course, but lots of toddlers really thrive on predictability. Consistent routines help them feel safe, learn self-control, guide positive behavior like washing hands before eating, and make those tricky transitions, like going from playtime to bath time, much smoother.
So putting it all together, When a toddler melts down over wanting a cookie or insists on climbing the stairs super slowly by themselves.
It's often not them trying to be bad.
Right. According to 0 to 3, it's rooted in their development. They're exploring independence, grappling with feelings they can't manage yet, testing boundaries. Seeing it that way, it really changes how you might react, doesn't it?
It completely reframes it.
Right.
And understanding that developmental context is, well, it's the foundation for choosing discipline strategies that are actually effective and positive.
Which leads us perfectly to the next part. If aversive methods are out and understanding development gives us the why behind behavior, what do these sources recommend parents actually do?
Well, the AAP is very direct. They strongly advise pediatricians to guide parents away from any corporal punishment and actively teach them alternative, positive strategies.
Okay, so what do those look like?
Across the sources, especially 0 to 3, some key themes emerge. One is just being responsive and understanding.
Responsive to the child.
Yes, but also understanding yourself. The AAP suggests parents kind of reflect on their own experiences and beliefs about discipline. And 0 to 3 stresses tuning into your child's specific signals and needs.
Okay, self-awareness for the parent too. What else?
Teaching and modeling. Big ones.
Yeah.
Pediatricians can provide info, like the AAP says, but parents teach constantly just by showing kindness, helping out, staying calm when things get frustrating. Kids watch everything.
They really do. And routines, we mentioned them for predictability, but they're discipline tools too.
Definitely. They're vital teachers. Consistent routines provide that safety net. And 0 to 3 suggest weaving learning into them, counting stairs, naming colors while getting dressed, talking through the steps of bath time. Everyday learning moments.
Language seems huge too.
Oh, incredibly powerful. 0 to 3 has great suggestions here, like expand on what your child says if they say truck. You say, yes, that's a big red truck. Put their actions into words. Wow, you're working so hard stacking those blocks.
You're narrating their world.
Exactly. And talking about feelings, yours, theirs, even characters in books, helps build emotional intelligence. Plus, explaining the why behind rules and limits, even if they don't fully get it yet. It builds cooperation over time. They even suggest just telling the story of your child's day together. Builds connection.
What about encouraging independence?
Yeah.
That me-do-it drive.
Channel it. Help them practice problem solving. Involve them in simple chores, like sorting socks or putting toys in a bin. 0 to 3 says be their coach, offer support, but let them try. Don't just jump in and do it for them.
Builds confidence, right?
Exactly. Confidence, self-esteem, actual skills, it's all connected.
Okay, but limits are still necessary, obviously. How do the sources suggest setting limits positively?
With respect, basically. First, get yourself in a positive mindset. Remember, these are often teachable moments linked to their development, not deliberate naughtiness.
Right, reframe it.
Then, put their feelings into words. I see you're really mad the tower fell. That helps them feel understood and can actually help them calm down.
Acknowledging the emotion.
Offer alternatives. You can't throw the block, but you can throw this softball. Or offer simple choices to give them some sense of control within the boundary. Red cup or blue cup.
Okay, so redirecting, offering choices. And what about just playing?
Fundamental. 0 to 3 really hammers this home. Play is how young kids learn. It's how they build social skills, use their imagination, and crucially, bond with you.
Be their playmate.
Be their first playmate. Follow their lead sometimes. Use humor. Be silly. Make things fun. Turn cleanup into a game. Pretend the scone is an airplane.
Makes tricky moments easier.
For sure. And encourage play with other kids for social skills. But if sharing is still really hard, 0 to 3 suggests activities where turn-taking isn't the main point, like dancing, making music, playing with sand or bubbles. Less competition.
Good tip. And finally, the AAP mentioned resources.
Yes, they really stress that pediatricians can be a gateway to support. Referring parents to educational materials, parent education programs, they list several evidence-based ones, community services, support groups, even mental health services if needed.
Because these positive strategies aren't always easy or intuitive.
Not at all. And asking for help or learning new skills is part of being a good parent. These approaches are all about building the child's skills and strengthening the relationship, which is such a contrast to the aversive methods.
Okay, so let's try to pull this all together. What are the main takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, I think the clearest message is the consensus from major groups like the AAP. Corporal punishment and harsh verbal discipline. They're just not effective for long-term teaching, and they are linked to negative outcomes for kids.
Even with the research debates about exact cause and effect.
Right. The link is there, and there's no evidence of benefit. And second, Understanding typical child development, especially for those intense toddler years, like 0 to 3 highlights, is absolutely essential.
It helps us see challenging behavior not as defiance, but as, like, learning opportunities.
Exactly. Opportunities for learning rooted in their developmental stage.
And maybe most importantly, these sources give us a whole toolbox of positive, evidence-based strategies.
Yeah, focusing on teaching, modeling, routines, good communication, problem solving, setting limits respectfully, and really prioritizing play and connection.
Methods that actually build skills like self-control and strengthen that parent-child bond, which is so vital.
So, hopefully you've got a much richer picture now and some places to look for more support.
It really does feel like a powerful shift in perspective compared to older ideas about discipline.
It is.
So here's something to think about based on all this. Considering how much the research points to the benefits of positive interactions of play, and acknowledging that you, the parent or caregiver, are often your child's very first and favorite playmate, how might intentionally reframing those everyday moments, the tricky ones like getting dressed, cleaning up toys, even navigating a meltdown, seeing them as chances for connection and teaching, how might that fundamentally change the way you approach discipline day to day?
That's a great question to ponder.